Most people will go their entire lives without ever questioning the simplest assumption they've carried since birth, the belief that they are the name they answer to. They will defend it, introduce themselves with it, feel pride or shame because of it. They will sign it on contracts, attach it to memories, and take it to their grave, never realizing that the name was never them. It was only an idea, a sound, a symbol. You didn't create your name. It was placed upon you. Long before you could speak, long before you understood the shape of a single thought, someone decided what you would be called. And in that moment, a seed was planted, a seed that would grow into an entire identity. Not because it was true, but because repetition would make it feel true. From the moment you could recognize your own reflection, that sound became your anchor. It became the way you knew where you ended and the world began. And yet, if you strip it away, what's left? If someone called you by another name tomorrow, if every person you know suddenly forgot the sound you've carried, would you vanish? Or would something far older remain something nameless, something deeper? The truth is, your name is a tool. And tools are created for a purpose. Names exist so others can categorize you, define you, speak about you when you're not there. They are labels, and labels are the foundation of control. Once something has a label, it can be described. Once it can be described, it can be judged. And once it can be judged, it can be placed. Placed in a box, placed in a hierarchy, placed in a story you didn't write. That's why your name isn't harmless. It carries the weight of your family history, the shadow of your culture, the fingerprints of every expectation whispered over you since you were a child. Your name connects you to a script, and most people don't realize they've been acting it out their entire lives. Think back. When someone spoke your name with pride, you felt lifted. When they spoke it in anger, you felt reduced. Your emotional state was tied to their use of the label, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. And because it started so early, you never noticed the strings. This is the first illusion of identity. The belief that the sound people use to call you is the same as the you that exists inside. But the inner self is not a sound. It's not a story. It's not even the collection of memories you replay at night. Psychologists have long studied the phenomenon of label identity, the way humans unconsciously adapt their behavior to match the labels they've been given. If a child is told they are clever, they grow to perform cleverness. If they are told they are trouble, they live up to trouble. And if they are given a name, they grow into the history, the cultural weight, the archetypes attached to that name. You have been shaped in ways too subtle to track by the syllables someone else chose for you. And here's the question you may never have asked. What happens when you step outside it? What happens when you remove the label and stand in the space between identities, where you are no one and nothing that can be described? This is where things become uncomfortable. Because without the name, you lose the ready-made role. You are no longer John or Amira or David or Fatima. You are a presence, a witness, a mind that cannot be filed or cataloged. For most, this is terrifying, because humans crave definition. Without a label, you feel invisible, and invisibility feels like death to the ego. But what if invisibility is freedom? What if the part of you that fears losing your name is the same part that fears being truly free? Society runs on names. Governments, banks, schools, they all require the label to process you. Without it, you cannot be tracked, measured, or assigned value in the marketplace. Without it, you step outside the architecture that tells you who you are and what you're worth. And stepping outside is dangerous. Not to you, but to the systems that rely on your compliance. This is why detaching from your name, even in thought, can feel like pulling at the foundation of your entire life. Because, in a way, it is. The moment you realize I am not my name, you begin to see all the other labels you've accepted without question. Your job title, your nationality, your relationship status, your religion, your political identity. One by one, they begin to look less like truths and more like costumes. Costumes you've worn for so long, you forgot there was skin underneath. And here is where the deeper work begins. Because this is not about rejecting your name out of rebellion. It's about observing how it has shaped your sense of self. How many of your decisions were made to protect the story attached to your name? How many moments of fear or hesitation came from the thought, what will they think of me? Not realizing that me was never you, but the idea of you carried in someone else's mind. When you detach from that idea, you are free to act without the invisible leash of reputation. You begin to see the difference between your true impulses and the role you've been playing. And perhaps for the first time, you meet the part of yourself that was never named, the silent observer behind every thought. The presence that watched as your name was spoken, praised, criticized, forgotten, and remembered again, yet remained untouched by all of it. That presence is the real you. It existed before the name. It will exist after it. And in the rare moments you feel it directly, you understand something profound. You were never the story they told you. You were never the sound they used to summon you. You are the one who hears the sound. And that difference changes everything. When the illusion of your name begins to fade, something unexpected happens. The mind, like an animal sensing the loss of its cage, will try to build a new one. It will search for another label, another role, another definition to replace the one you've started to question. This is the mind's survival mechanism, the ego's instinct to reestablish boundaries. Because boundaries, even false ones, feel safer than the vastness of the unknown. If you have no name, the mind thinks, how will I know who I am? But that's the wrong question. The real question is, why do I believe I need to know? We've been taught since childhood that identity is not only important, it is essential. The moment a child shows a preference, adults begin weaving that into a story. She's shy. He's bold. She's an artist. He's good with numbers. And without realizing it, the child learns to play the role. Not because it's who they truly are, but because it earns them recognition, safety, and love. Your name was the doorway into that story. It's how the script began. It became the handle by which others could pull you into the part you were expected to play. And you learned to walk willingly into the role. Because the alternative, being undefined, meant no one would know how to treat you, and you wouldn't know how to treat yourself. But here's the paradox. The more tightly you cling to the story of me, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you are, the easier you are to control. Consider how society operates. Entire industries are built on the assumption that you will remain consistent with the identity you've claimed. If you've always been the responsible one, advertisers know what products you'll buy. If you're the adventurous one, they know how to tempt you with experiences. The economy thrives on your self-image staying intact. If it shatters, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability doesn't fit neatly into a marketing plan. This is why the moment you step outside your label, people around you may react with confusion or even hostility. It's not just that they don't recognize you, it's that your change threatens the stability of their world. Because if you can be more than your label, so can they. And that realization is often too heavy to face. Here's a truth most never hear. The strongest prison is the one whose bars you can't see. Your name is one of those bars. Your job title is another. Your social persona, your reputation, your brand, all of these are invisible walls. And you carry them with you everywhere, mistaking them for shelter. To escape, you don't need to run. You need to see the walls for what they are, illusions maintained by agreement. The moment you stop agreeing, they lose power. But this isn't as simple as deciding, I'm free now. The ego will fight back. It will whisper fears. Without a name, you'll be nobody. Without a role, you'll be lost. If no one can define you, no one will care about you. And yet, look closer. These fears are not coming from your deeper self. They are coming from the construct that grew around your name, the survival identity built from years of repetition. It speaks with urgency because it knows. If you stop believing in it, it ceases to exist. In psychological terms, this is called ego death. It's not the death of you, only the death of who you thought you were. And in the silence that follows, something extraordinary emerges. When you no longer feel bound to the name, the role, the reputation, you discover a kind of fluidity. You can adapt, shift, create without the weight of, what will they think of me? You become like water, impossible to grasp, impossible to pin down, yet capable of taking any shape. This is the space where true freedom begins. Because freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want, it's the ability to act without the invisible chains of expectation. Think of the great innovators, artists, and thinkers of history. The ones who shifted entire cultures were rarely those who clung to a fixed identity. They reinvented themselves over and over, shedding names, titles, and reputations like old skin. They understood, consciously or not, that to remain in the same story is to die slowly. Wait, and here's something you won't hear in ordinary motivational speeches. Growth isn't about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about realizing that the self you've been improving was never the real thing. The real you cannot be improved. It can only be revealed. So how do you begin? The first step is subtle. Notice the moments when your name appears in your mind before you act. Notice how often you stop yourself because someone like me wouldn't do that. That's the label speaking. That's the ghost of the identity guarding its territory. The second step is to experiment with small acts of disobedience to your own story. If you're the quiet one, speak first. If you're the careful one, take a calculated risk. Each time you break the pattern, you loosen the grip of the name. And finally, spend time in spaces where no one knows you. Travel, even briefly, to places where your history is invisible. Watch how quickly the mind scrambles to rebuild a self-image and choose, instead, to remain undefined. In that undefined space, something remarkable happens. You start to sense the observer. Not the character in the story, but the one who's been watching all along. The one who's been here before the name and will be here after it's gone. That observer doesn't need labels. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need to be understood. And when you realize that this is what you are, you'll understand why so much of the world's power structures depend on keeping you identified with a name, a role, a definition. Because a human who knows they are more than their identity cannot be manipulated in the same way. They become unpredictable. They become free. And nothing is more dangerous or more powerful than a mind that knows it cannot be reduced to a label. By now, if you followed this path with full attention, you felt something unsettling. Not fear exactly, but a strange emptiness where your familiar self once stood. That's the space we've been moving toward. It's tempting to fill that space immediately, to rush to build a new identity, a new me that feels solid, but resist that urge. This moment, right now, is the closest you've been to seeing the truth without distortion. Your name, your story, your labels, they were never you. They were like clothes you were given at birth and told to wear for the rest of your life. And you wore them so long, you forgot you were naked underneath. When you strip away the name, the mind feels exposed, vulnerable. It will demand protection. But here's the secret. You don't need protection from nothingness. The void you feel is not dangerous. It is the pure space from which your real life can finally begin. Most people will never reach this point. Not because they can't, but because they won't. They will defend their name until their last breath, as if their existence depends on it. And for them, it does. Because without it, they wouldn't know who to be. But you've glimpsed something different. A freedom that doesn't depend on how others see you. A power that comes from being ungraspable, undefined, untamed. Think about it. When someone calls your name, they aren't calling you. They're summoning the image they hold of you in their mind. And if you answer, you step into that image willingly, becoming the version they expect. But you don't have to answer. not to them, and not to the endless voices in your head calling you back into the story. This isn't about rejecting the world. It's about moving through it without being chained to a single face. When you realize you can wear identities like masks, put them on when they serve a purpose, take them off when they don't, you become something far more dangerous than yourself. You become fluid. And fluid things cannot be held. The masters of self-liberation throughout history understood this. They weren't obsessed with becoming a single, perfected identity. They mastered the art of disappearing, of being everywhere and nowhere at once, of speaking without giving away their center. And here's what they knew. The moment you stop being defined, the world can no longer predict you. The systems built to control predictable identities, advertising, politics, even social relationships lose their grip. You stop being a target audience and become an anomaly. And anomalies are where the real change begins. But with this power comes responsibility. You can choose to use your fluidity to manipulate, to dominate, to hide in the shadows, or you can use it to move through life as a free force, untouched by the labels that bind others. One path is the road of control. The other is the road of freedom. The choice will be yours every day. So what now? You can go back. Slip into the comfort of your name, your story, your predictable place in the world. The cage will feel warm at first, familiar, safe. But if you've listened closely, that warmth will soon feel like suffocation. You will remember this moment in the space you saw beyond the bars. Or you can keep going. You can live without letting a single definition trap you. You can wear your name loosely, like a costume you enjoy but never mistake for your skin. You can watch the world try to pin you down and smile as they fail. If you choose this path, you will lose some things. You will lose the comfort of being known in a fixed way. You will lose the illusion that your worth depends on recognition. You will lose the certainty that comes from playing a single role. But what you gain will be beyond measure. You will gain a mind that moves without fear of contradiction, a presence that can adapt to any situation without losing itself, a freedom that no law, no system, no person can take away. This is the quiet revolution. Not loud, not announced, not a performance for others to see. It begins in the smallest of moments, the moment you stop answering to the name in your head and start listening to the silence underneath it. And from that silence, you begin to live. Not as a name, not as a role, but as the raw, unshaped awareness that has been here all along. No one can define that. No one can own it. And once you've tasted it, you will never again believe the illusion.